Welcome to our EM. We're glad you are here. It's good to see all your faces. I know this week half of us are sick because most of us were at VBS this week serving our kids. Thank you guys for all you do. Couple of announcements. As always, our offering is on Venmo or on Zelle. So if you have tithes or offerings to give, that information is always on the front as always. A couple of announcements. Thank you to our VBS volunteers. Majority of you guys here were volunteers. I think we had a total of like 42 staff members, and the majority of the teachers and older staff were from our church. So I know that the 8 churches that combined to do VBS this year, we are so thankful for all that our church did to support. Every year it's the same. So next year it will be on May 28th to 30th, okay? The Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after Memorial Day is always VBS. So if you're interested, we're going to reach out again around February of next year to see who's interested. I know all 8 churches who did it this year are on board for next year. So we'll let you guys know. Thank you guys, especially our church kids. You guys went above and beyond. You guys are amazing, okay? But the fun's not over because at the end of summer is our United Fuse Youth Retreat. So the majority of the youth volunteers will also be part of Fuse as students. The ones serving you will be the older folks like me, and Daniel is an older folk now, and Nicole, Yudi, a lot of that generation, they're going to be the ones serving you guys this time. So come for Fuse, July 31st to August 2nd. All that information is there. All of you guys have registered already, so if you have any friends who want to come with you, registration is closing soon. It's getting really full, so just be aware of that, okay? All right, I think that's it for announcements. So again, welcome to our EM. We're glad you're here. Today's message is Jesus proves his authority. Jesus is greater than sickness. So in case you haven't seen, the last few weeks we're on this same series about Jesus proving his authority. The first week, it was Jesus over nature. Last week was Jesus over sin. And this week, it's Jesus over sickness. Now, who's sick right now? Raise your hands. Raise your hands. Everyone who was at VBS. Okay. Think about a time when you were like really sick. Okay, like really sick. Like you wanted to see Jesus. You were so sick. Okay. Like who has been that sick before? Okay, a couple of you guys. Like you never get sick, but apparently you've been that sick before, okay? Like you want to see Jesus, that kind of sick. Yeah, he did have pneumonia. Do you guys remember last year sometime when we had combined service and he was losing it? It was pneumonia, y'all. Okay, for the sake of me being the one to share, I've had some like sick moments. I've had some like life-threatening moments. I've had like emergency surgery before. I've had lots of things. And I would say I'm fairly healthy. But there was this one time that I will not forget this moment of sickness, okay? And we're all real close because I'm sharing this with you, okay? So, you know the one place I really don't like to eat? Do you guys know what it is? Take a wild guess. No, I love pizza. Any kind of like buffet, especially like, you know, those like Chinese buffets that do those like hibachi thingy, whatever, or like grill thingies, y'all. So when we live in Kansas City, okay, and there's this place, I will not name it because this is live streamed. Anyway, so I've had to, and this is like the one Chinese buffet everyone goes to. This is not the one you're thinking of, Marissa, it's a different one. But so I've had like 2 very strong memories attached to this place. The last time I was there and I was eating and my back was hurting so bad. I didn't realize why. I didn't realize I was like in labor with Chisung at that time. I didn't realize I was like, man, these chairs are super uncomfy. But I was in labor. Didn't realize it. At 4 a.m. that next after dinner, I had him in the hospital. But my next memory attached to this place. So I went there and I got the whatever that girl thingy is. and I'm pretty sure something was undercooked. Who's ever had food poisoning? Y'all, did you want to see Jesus? Like, food poisoning is real bad. I think it's like way worse than stomach flu. It is the devil's armpit, okay? It is way bad. And so I got really bad food poisoning, like really bad. Like, I'm talking, you're sitting on the toilet with the trash can in front of you because everything is coming out both directions. It was so appealing, y'all. Like, it was such a bad experience. And it was like 24 hours long. It was really short, but like, I could not leave the bathroom. And like, your stomach feels like your insides feel like it's ripping out of you. It's so bad. Do not go to that place. I'm just kidding. But the point is, like, do not eat undercooked foods. Anyway, like, so bad, so sick. Who's been like that sick before? No one's, food poisoning, the three of us, the ultimate triangle of food poisoning. You guys. Okay, but the thing is, that thankfully is a passing kind of illness, right? I don't think, some of you in this room, maybe you do have, but who's experienced like chronic illness? Maybe it's not as bad as my like sit on the toilet story. However, like you're always in pain, or like, there's always something wrong in your body, or there's always like you go to the doctors, they have no idea what's wrong, kind of a thing. Or you are born with something like Jisung that like he has to always manage for the rest of his life, Those kind of things, even if they're not more painful, because stomach flu or like food poisoning is very painful, at least that's temporary, But imagine being ill and being sick, or like being on the verge of death. You know what I mean? Like really, truly, like you could die tomorrow, like kind of illness. That's what we see today. Now, most of you in this room are probably not going to die tomorrow, hopefully. Not, okay? I mean, y'all never know, dear Jesus, please cover us, protect us. But like, we never know, right? Life is very fragile. We don't know. Like, we don't know any of our lives. There was a pastor in our Baptist pastors group who recently, his wife passed away beginning of this year. And when he was helping his wife, because she was on her, she was dying, he found out he had pancreatic cancer. If you don't know, pancreatic cancer is terminal. Like most people die from it. And just this last week, he died. He passed away. And before he died, our pastor and a bunch of other pastors went to visit him. And, knowing it would be the last time they'd ever see him, And he was like, when you realize you're dying, like really, truly, nothing else matters. Like all the things that you stress about and worry about and are like grudges we hold or whatever it may be, none of it matters when you're that close to death. And I think sometimes that is the greatest gift God can give us. Wouldn't that be great to actually know, like, I know I'm going to die in X amount of time. And so I can get my life in order. I have time to forgive. I have time to ask for forgiveness, This is a super exciting conversation, right? But the reality is Jesus is greater than all sickness and even death. And I want us to know that reality about, yes, do people still die? Absolutely. Do people get sick? Absolutely. And yet, Jesus is still greater than all of those things. Does he allow sickness? Does he allow death? Yes. And yet, he also on this earth, when he walked, showed that he had power over sickness and death. Now, most of you in this room probably aren't sick physically. Maybe some of you are. But most of us in this room do have some kind of quote unquote sickness. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's disordered eating. Maybe it's XYZ. Maybe it's patterns of behavior that really, really ruin our lives. All of us. Maybe you're pointing to somebody else, but all of us have that. All of us have that. So here he is today showing us what is it that light switch, right? What is it that unlocks the power of Jesus in our lives over sin and death? And here are 3 stories. So here we see the first one is that Jesus responds to humble faith. Raise your hands if you think you're super humble. Okay, that means you're not. Just kidding. Okay, raise your hand. Just kidding. But like truly, truly humble. Like very humble. Like you know, like you got some stuff to give, but you also know like you are not the best person in the world. Like there's a lot of humility all of us still have to learn. I think this one's the hardest. I think we can be the others really well, but I think being humble is the hardest. So here we see the story, Matthew 9:18. Matthew 9:18. It says this. So here's Jesus, he's talking, and a leader of the synagogues, or a religious leader, comes. And what does he do? He kneels before Jesus. Such a posture of humility. And he says, my daughter has what? Is she sick? No, what does she just do? She's dead. Homegirl's dead, okay? And he says, but you can bring her back to life again if you just come and lay your hand on her. He's saying, if you come and you pray over her, she will get up from the dead. I believe it. And so he got up and he went with him. Most of you guys know our story with Chisung, right? He was born very early. They told me early on that he couldn't walk, that he would have a lot of issues in his life. And I at that point in my life, I grew up with parents who are they're not perfect, but they're pretty amazing as far as like praying and being people of faith goes. And I remember when I would wake up in the mornings, I knew exactly where my parents would be every day. I knew where my mom was and where my dad was. They each had a prayer spot in the house where that's always where I'd go to find them because they were praying every single morning. And so I was becoming a mom. I was pregnant, right? And I was like, man, I'm like not that good of a prayer person like my parents, you know? Like I gotta get on this because I'm gonna have kids. And so then I had my kid. After that buffet, see, all the connections, okay? After that buffet experience, that's not why I had him early, but I had him early. And, you know, they're telling me all these crazy things about he like couldn't do, wouldn't be able to do. And I will tell you, I have never prayed so hard in my life. Never prayed so hard in my life. It was the hardest season of my life, but I also had the most faith in my life. I truly believe that because I felt like I was before God, grabbing him and saying, you need to do something. Because if you don't do something, this kid suffers. So I need you to do something now. And that's the kind of prayer I prayed. Like wordless prayers, tearful prayers, prayers and prayers and prayers. But you know, all of you guys think back right now. Majority of you who grew up in church, majority of you have come from Christian families. Who prays for you? Right now, who do you know prays for you? Either it's your mom or your grandma, okay? Every Asian gangsta kid who comes to know Jesus, there's always a common story. Who was praying like crazy? It was mom or grandma or both. That kid's over, you know? Every single person I've ever met who's like a total kangpe, who loves Jesus radically now, 100%, there was a mom or there was a grandma who was a prayer person of prayer. Y'all, I know none of you have kids. I understand. You're like, how does this relate? Okay, I want you to think about the person in your life who prays for you. Because there is someone in this life who prays for you. Maybe it's not your parents. Maybe you don't come from a family of faith. But there is someone in your life who is praying for you, and that's why you're here. You don't come to church on accident, especially nowadays. You know, who goes to church? Nobody. What are y'all doing here? You know what I mean? No one goes to church. The reason why you are here, even if you're like, oh, my mom freaking forced me to come, I don't care. The reason why you're here is because someone's praying. Someone's praying that you meet the Lord, and that's why you're here. Every Sunday, I come to church, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm going to speak this message. I have no idea what you're going to do, but I believe that in a moment, God can move in your life. I believe through one thing that's said, God can turn your life around. And so that's why I show up every single Sunday. And I declare this truth over all of you. Maybe you're dead right now spiritually. All of you in this room are not physically dead, okay? Because you're clearly breathing and you're sitting here. But maybe there are some of you in this room who are spiritually dead, who feel so dry, so spiritually nothing is vibing. Everything is off. Everything is broken. Look, this man came to Jesus when his daughter was already dead and said, if you come though, if you show up, then she will live. Y'all, that's the kind of Jesus we serve. That's the kind of Jesus we know. If you're spiritually dead right now, do not raise your hand. But you know who you are, okay? You know who you are. And if you've all experienced it at some point, every one of you. Maybe you're there right now. If Jesus walks into the room, he can bring you to life. More than physical death, spiritual death. He can do the impossible. Verse 23. So he gets there, and everyone's prepared for the funeral. Like they're ready to bury her, okay? And here comes Jesus. And he's like, look, homegirl ain't dead. She's just asleep. And they're like, dude, you're weird. She is physically gone. And so he sent the crowd outside. And watch what happens. He walks in, took the girl by her hand, and she stood up from death. You guys, she was dead. But he proclaims that she is not. What in your life right now feels dead? Let me ask you, what in your life right now feels dead? Maybe it is your spiritual life. Maybe it's relationship in your life. Maybe it's your finances are dead and you're poor. I don't know. Like whatever it is, all of you, there's some nodding heads. All of you in this room, there is some kind of death or sickness or brokenness that you're wrestling with. Maybe it's a sibling relationship. Maybe it's, I don't know. All of us, there's some kind of death that we're fighting against. Death of a marriage. I don't know. All of us are facing something. And yet he says it is not dead. Because look, Jesus just showed up. Nothing's dead when he shows up. What seems dead in your life, he sees as different. And though the crowd and the world tells you it's dead, it's not. It was that kind of faith, that kind of humble faith. When Jesus walks into your heart, walks into your life, the dead comes to life. I don't care how many times you've prayed. I have been praying every day for the last 6 years. Josiah's name, his story, is his name means God has healed. When I first thought of that name, I was like, oh, I love that name. And then when I found out the meaning, I was like, oh, that meaning is too specific. It's not a good one. Because like, he's not going to need healing, you know? And so I was like, oh, we have time. And then I gave birth and they're like, what's his name? And I was like, well, I guess it's going to be Josiah because I haven't thought of anything else. But that night when I came home without a baby in the hospital, he's in the hospital, and I asked God, why did this happen? And he said, what is his name? What have I promised? Not God will heal, God has healed. And he said, that's what you declare every day over his life. Every day. Every day that he wrestles, every day that he struggles, every day that he's eating medicine and whatever else, you declare his name, that God has already healed. That takes faith. He knows that story, and he's going to walk. That's going to be his legacy now. God has healed. God will do that work in your life. He has that kind of power. Whatever feels dead. Maybe some of you do have a physical illness. Some kind of like thing that is kind of your like Achilles heel, you know, whatever it is, that's very difficult for you in your life. I encourage you to think of that as a way that God is keeping you humble, to trust him, to believe. Do you believe that with whatever is dead, he can bring to life? Whatever is dead in your heart, he can bring to life. Whatever addictions we wrestle with, God can bring you to life. All of us. Number 2, this one seems a little bit easier. Jesus responds to not just humble faith, but bold faith. While he's going on the way to this girl who's died, right? There's another woman who suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. Now, ladies in the room, you understand what this means, right? Okay? You know, fierce, what is that saying? Like wrath on the house when who is on their period? Mom's on her period, man. The wrath of the Lord's on the house, okay? It's not always, but sometimes. All right. If you have a sister, you know, or a mom, okay, like hell hath no fury for 3 girls. Can you imagine Jalen's dad, what he goes through? There's 4 girls in the house. Dear Lord, have mercy on him, right? Like sometimes, well, there's one less girl right now. But like, you know, Jack, you got so many girls in the house. You know, well, actually, he moved out. So see, that was why he escaped, okay? But like, women, y'all know, right, what that's like? Can you imagine? But at least you know it ends in like 5, 6, 7 days, right? This woman has had constant bleeding. It has not stopped for 12 years. Can you imagine like how awful that is? Also, like probably how weak you are, because that's not good to lose that kind of blood, right? Like so much blood loss. And she's suffering. But you know what's worse? In this society, in Jewish, remember, this is before modern medicine. So they didn't know, like, when you touch someone else's blood, that's like not sterile, right? Like you can get sick from that. And so God had given them these rules that said, don't touch other people's blood for fun, okay? Because you could die. And so there were these rules in place at first to protect them. But now these rules were used against people, to ostracize people. So because she's always bleeding, she's considered unclean. If you even touch an unclean person, you become unclean. And then you cannot participate in all of the like activities throughout the day. So like if anyone is sick, like nowadays, you know, when my sweet son coughs all over you, all of you are like, dear Jesus, have mercy on me, because we're all going to get sick now, you know? But like, it was like that. Like it was like that time is like a million, you know? Nobody touched her. Nobody wanted to be around her. Who's ever been in a crowd or like a big room and you still feel alone? You know what I mean? Like that feeling of like you're in a school full of people, but you feel alone. You know what I mean? That feeling is so sad, you know? That's how she felt all the time. Because of her physical illness, everyone ostracized her for 12 years. That's the kind of pain and she was in. And here she is. Remember, she can't touch anyone. No one can touch her. That's like the rule, okay? But she comes up behind Jesus and she thinks this: if I can just touch his robe, I'll be healed. It's like going to the doctor and you're like, if I just touch that stethoscope, I'll be healed, you know? That's weird. Like no one thinks that, you know? Like that's not how it works, okay? But literally she had that kind of faith of like, this man, because again, reputation has before him, like he's healed tons of people, and she believes, she's probably spent her life savings on trying to find healing. You know what I mean? Like she's probably poor now. And she's like, if I just touch his robe, if I just like even do that, I can be healed. But you know what? That's really bold. That's a risky social taboo move. Like you don't do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, this is a weird example, but if it's like if someone else gave me their baby and they're like, breastfeed this baby, I'm like, excuse me? Sorry, that's weird. I mean, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, this is socially strange. Like, homegirl's weird, okay? And you're all like, she's something else. But she's like, I'm that desperate to be healed. I'm going to do that. And so what do we see in verse 22? Again, it's a crowd. There's people pressing all over him. But he somehow knows it's her. And he says, he turns around and he saw her. And he said, daughter, be encouraged. Your faith has made you well. And she was healed in that moment. You know, like if some like homeless guy or girl or whatever with like some obvious illness came and touched you, what would you do? Be honest. What would you do, all of you? What would you do? I mean, maybe you're like, you know, like, what would you do? But like, he does not ostracize her. He's not like, woman, get away from me. That's not what he does. He says, daughter, your faith has healed you. The person that everybody else ostracized, he heals in that moment. Guys, that's the kind of power Jesus has. That's the kind of power. He will never turn you away. He will never say no to you when he wants to say yes. Sometimes he says no for your own good, okay? Like when my child asked me for ice cream at 6 a.m., I said, that's not okay. That's not healthy for you, okay? It's for your good that I say no. You could have it at 6 p.m., okay, whatever it is. Jesus is always approachable. Always approachable. Whoever has told you that he's hard to get to, or he's, it's too hard to listen to him, or it's hard to hear God's voice, that's a bunch of lies. Okay? Is what that is. Because he is approachable. He is the one who loves you and wants to heal you and wants to move in your life. The last one. We know this really well, but Jesus responds to desperate faith. This is all one chapter, you guys. This happened boom, 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 all in one instance. This is the last one where Jesus, and he left the girl's home. He just healed her, right? He freaking raised the girl from the dead, okay? And he's like, next person, please. He's just like moving on. And 2 blind men start following him. Can you imagine? Like, they're probably like all over the place because they're blind. You know what I mean? They're like following him. They're shouting after him. And they're like, Son of David, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. Like, please, we know we don't deserve to be healed, but would you please heal us? And they went into the house of where he was staying. Okay, can you imagine you have someone at your house staying with you and these 2 blind men just bust in like into your house asking for healing? This is not normal, okay? They were very desperate. You could blame them not being blind, but they probably knew what they were doing. They were very desperate. And look what he says. He says, do you believe I can make you see? I'm pretty sure their actions speak louder than words, but he asks them specifically, do you believe? And they said, yes. They said, yes. What's interesting is they were physically blind. Like, who's like almost legally blind without glasses? Like, who's blind without glasses? Okay. When you wake up and you don't have your glasses, I saw this like Twitter or whatever, Instagram, that was like, natural selection would have taken me out if it wasn't for like optometry. Like, I would have been like dead already because I cannot see. When you wake up, do you guys, sorry, I'm talking to the 2 of you who are almost legally blind. When you wake up, do you ever get scared that your glasses aren't there? Like, I don't know. I think I'd be like scared that like someone pulled a prank on me and stole my glasses and now I can't see. I don't know. Do you ever get nervous about that? Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. No one's going to see your glasses, okay? But like, I still don't have great vision, but I can like at least see in the morning. I'd not be very sad. But like, imagine if you're totally blind. Like, how hard would that be to live? They were physically blind, but spiritually, they knew that Jesus could heal. The ones who could see missed it most of the time. But the ones who couldn't see realized that he could do this amazing miracle. All of us in this room have been spiritually blind before, or maybe you are right now. That's okay. The point being, it's hard to see Jesus. It's hard to believe Jesus. If that's you, you and I are probably struggling with some level of spiritual blindness. All of us. But just because you're blind, does that mean the sun does not exist? Because you can't see it. No, right? Does it make sense? Like, the sun is still there even if you can't see it. Jesus is still there even if you can't see it, him spiritually. Let me ask you, are you spiritually blind? Because in that place, he wants to meet you. Jesus did not come to heal the ones who are already doing fine. He came to heal the ones who are blind, broken, dead. That's the ones he came to heal. Last verse. He touched their eyes and said, because of what? Is it because of I'm amazing? Because I'm freaking Jesus? What did he say? Because of your faith, it will happen. And then their eyes opened and they could see. Not just 1, 2. Having faith does not mean we get to see the proof. Having faith means that we trust completely in who God is. I'm going to repeat that because that's real important, okay? Like, this tattoo to your face, okay? Like, having faith does not mean you get to see proof. Having faith means you trust completely in who God is. Who God is in his character. Most of us who grow up in healthy families, I know my son trusts me and dad. Like, I know he does. He never questions, like, are they going to feed me? Are they going to love me? Sometimes he does doubt that, because like he gets in trouble and then he gets whatever. But like, he never doubts that we love him or like we're not going to feed him. You know what I mean? Like, he, without even understanding or knowing, he trusts us. In the same way, do you trust God? In that, like, he will always be with you, for your good, even in the hard things. Once our eyes are open to our need for Jesus, we can respond in faith. So let me ask you, what kind of faith do you have? Is it humble? Is it bold? Is it desperate? Is it like non-existent? That's okay. Everyone, different places, right? But let me ask you another question. Are you struggling? Is something hard? Maybe you have a physical illness. Maybe you're wrestling with trauma from your own childhood. Or maybe you're wrestling with XYZ or identity issues or whatever it may be. Maybe your future is drastically changing. A couple of you in this room, it is, because you're going to college and you're going to different things in your life, right? All of you in this room, that kind of hardship is an opportunity to experience humble, bold, and desperate faith. That kind of faith you don't just wake up with. That kind of faith it's born out of a place of adversity. It's born out of hardship. But you can let that hardship, there's that saying, I'm trying to think of it right now. Okay, there's an egg and there's a potato. Who likes eggs, potatoes? Together, breakfast, amazing. Okay, not the point. Egg, potato. You put them both in hot water. What happens to the egg? It becomes what? Correct. That is how it works. Hot and hard. You put the potato in the water. What happens to it? It becomes soft. Do you want to be the egg or do you want to be the potato? Everyone goes through adversity. Everyone goes through hardship. If you've never experienced physical hardship, you will experience some kind of hardship that will be hard on your life, that will really humble you. That hot water only going to keep getting hotter, okay, in life. And you cannot dodge the hot water, okay? It will come for you. Maybe you're already in it. But the point being is you have the choice. Will you be an egg or will you be a potato? Be a potato, okay, y'all? Let that adversity be what humbles you, what softens you, what causes you to come before God. Can the praise team come up? What kind of sickness are you wrestling with? Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's a relationship problem. Maybe it's childhood trauma. Whatever it is, all of us have something we're wrestling with. And all of you, that means you have the choice. Will I be humble before God, or will I keep going my own way? Will I take this time to be bold in my prayers, or will I doubt him? Will I choose to be desperate, or will I give up? All of us have that choice. Can we all stand? Jesus is someone you can trust. He's someone who wants to heal you. For some, that healing may take time. For others, that healing might be instantaneous. For others, maybe you're in a waiting season. I don't know where you are, but he knows. He knows exactly where you are. And though sickness, brokenness was not a part of God's original plan, with sin and its fallenness and brokenness, it entered our world. So it is a part of our reality. But even still, he uses that for our good. But contingent on your yes. Your yes of, I'm going to be a potato, not going to be an egg. I want to let this soften me. I want this to bring me closer to Jesus, not further away from him. We're going to sing this song together and then we're going to pray. But as we sing, I want you to think about who Jesus truly is to you. More than your sickness, more than your brokenness, more than your issues. Because yes, it's very tempting to always focus on that because that is a big part of your life. Rather than focusing on that sickness or brokenness, let's set our eyes on the one who can heal us, who does heal us, who already has healed us. Let's sing together.